During Donald Trump's presidency, his administration implemented a series of tariffs aimed at reshaping global trade dynamics, particularly with China, Europe, and other major economies. One of the most immediate consequences of these tariffs was the impact they had on the prices of imported goods in the U.S. The tariffs, often referred to as trade taxes, were imposed on everything from steel and aluminum to electronics and textiles, with varying effects on businesses and consumers alike. This video explores the top 10 ways Trump's tariff push impacted import prices, highlighting how these changes affected both domestic industries and everyday consumers. 1. Higher prices on consumer goods. The most direct impact of Trump's tariffs on import prices was the increase in the cost of consumer goods. Products like electronics, clothing, and household items, many of which are manufactured overseas, saw significant price hikes due to the added costs of tariffs. Retailers, faced with higher import costs, passed these increases on to consumers. This made many everyday items, such as smartphones, appliances, and apparel, more expensive for American families. 2. Increased costs for manufacturers. Manufacturers in the U.S. who rely on imported raw materials and intermediate goods felt the impact of tariffs on essential components. Industries such as automotive, machinery, and electronics saw production costs rise as the price of imported parts like steel, aluminum, and microchips increased. For example, the auto industry, which imports many parts from countries like China, experienced price hikes for vehicle components, leading to increased prices for American-made cars. 3. Impact on agricultural imports. Agricultural imports were also significantly affected by Trump's tariff policies. Countries that are major agricultural exporters to the U.S., such as Mexico, Canada, and Brazil, faced higher tariffs on their products, including fruits, vegetables, and meat. This increase in import costs led to higher prices at grocery stores for products that rely heavily on imported goods. For example, tariffs on pork and other meats from countries like Canada and Mexico made these products more expensive for American consumers. 4. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries. Trump's tariff push led to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, which had a twofold effect on import prices. First, countries like China, the EU, and Mexico imposed tariffs on U.S. goods, increasing the cost of American exports. Second, some of these retaliatory tariffs targeted U.S. products that were also key imports for American businesses, driving up prices on products ranging from agricultural goods to technology components. As these countries raised tariffs on U.S. exports, businesses had to adjust their supply chains, increasing costs in the process. 5. Price increases on steel and aluminum. Steel and aluminum were among the most affected products in Trump's tariff push. The 25% tariff on steel and the 10% tariff on aluminum created a significant price hike for both raw materials and the finished goods that rely on these metals. This affected a wide range of industries, from construction and automotive to consumer goods. Products like cars, machinery, and even soda cans saw price increases as manufacturers were forced to pay more for the metals they needed to produce these items. 6. Shifting supply chains and sourcing costs. As a response to higher tariffs, many companies sought alternative sources for their imported goods in order to avoid tariff costs. However, this shift often resulted in higher sourcing costs. For example, companies that previously imported goods from China began sourcing from other countries like Vietnam or India. Although this may have circumvented some of the tariffs, the cost of shipping and logistics often outweighed the savings, driving up overall import prices. Supply chain adjustments also led to inefficiencies and increased transportation costs. 7. Impact on tech products. The technology sector was hit particularly hard by Trump's tariff policies, especially as many tech products like smartphones, laptops, and components were manufactured overseas. The tariffs on Chinese goods, which affected many of these products, resulted in higher prices for consumers. For example, Apple, which sources a significant portion of its components from China, saw an increase in the prices of its products as a result of the tariffs. Additionally, companies that relied on Chinese-made electronics components had to raise their prices to account for the higher import costs. 8. Increased costs for retailers. Retailers were faced with the challenge of absorbing or passing on the increased import costs caused by Trump's tariffs. Many retailers, especially those in the fashion, electronics, and home goods industries, had to adjust their pricing strategies to maintain profit margins. Some retailers chose to absorb the costs, which reduced their margins, while others raised prices to protect their profitability. This led to a mix of outcomes for consumers, with some paying higher prices and others experiencing fewer discounts or sales promotions. 9. Effect on imported luxury goods. Luxury goods, such as designer handbags, watches, and high-end cars, also saw price increases due to Trump's tariff policies. Imported from countries in Europe, Japan, and other regions, these high-end products were subject to the same tariffs on imported goods. As luxury goods often come with a premium price tag, the added tariff costs made these products even more expensive. Consumers in the U.S. looking to purchase luxury items found that tariffs led to higher costs, reducing demand for certain categories of high-end goods. 10. Currency fluctuations and tariff effects. The imposition of tariffs had an indirect effect on the value of the U.S. dollar, which in turn impacted import prices. As tariffs increased, certain countries, particularly China, responded by adjusting their currency policies, leading to fluctuations in exchange rates. The weakening of the U.S. dollar, as a result of trade imbalances and market reactions to the tariffs, made imports more expensive. This further compounded the price hikes on goods from countries affected by Trump's tariff push, impacting everything from food and clothing to electronics and raw materials. Trump's tariff push had a profound impact on import prices across a range of industries, from consumer goods to raw materials and luxury items. While the goal of these tariffs was to protect domestic industries and address trade imbalances, the consequence was a rise in prices for American consumers and businesses alike. Higher prices on steel, electronics, agricultural products, and everyday consumer goods became the norm as companies adjusted their supply chains, passed on increased costs, and navigated retaliatory tariffs. As these changes ripple through the economy, it remains clear that tariffs are a complex tool with wide-reaching effects on the global marketplace and domestic pricing structures.